bar.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps.
Huge strides in the performance.
That I might not be the player I am today.
All right, welcome to another episode of Behind the Gear, and we got 3 of us here today. So we're doing a little, normally it's one-on-one. Sometimes we have 3s, depends. But we're going to start off with Mitch Stewart, who's been on the podcast a bunch before. Mitch runs Total Package Speed, Strength and Conditioning. And obviously I've worked a ton with Mitch, and he has worked with the next gentleman I'm going to introduce is Callum Cowan. And Callum is a doctor in naturopathic medicine and owns a clinic, obviously out of Burlington, and has just moved into the London area. So first of all, I'll go to you because Mitch is fine where he is. We already know how he's doing. He's doing fine. But Callum, how you doing, buddy? How's everything going? How was the move from Burlington to here? As far as doing that through COVID has got to be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, pretty smooth transition, and nice to get into a new area. We have my wife's family is all from London, so it's nice to have some more family around during COVID and make the transition a little smoother. So we're enjoying it so far. And
you've got 2 little ones as well, so it's kind of nice to have some like supporting cast around you when you've got kids, eh?
Big time. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, especially with the no schools happening, homeschooling and everything is a whole new animal.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Now, and Mitch, how you doing, buddy? How's everything going with you, and how's everything going with strength training and stuff like that during these times?
Doing great. We've certainly had to pivot quite a bit, doing lots of stuff in front of the camera, videoing exercises, stuff on Zoom, but all in all, it's going well.
Good. That's good. And I know you two have worked together quite a bit as far as with athletes. And I know, Callum, a lot of your, products and what you do at Phenom is a variety of different people. Could be an athlete, could be that mom, dad, could be that grandparent, doesn't matter. And I think the big goal of kind of what I've heard from Mitch and what I've read up on you and went through your website, which is phenomenal, is basically just trying to optimize life, trying to take what you've got already and make it a little bit better as far as your body and how everything's working together within your body and that system and stuff like that. How did you come up? Because the one thing that we talked about a little bit off the air before we got on here was just, you really simplify things. When I was reading it, I didn't feel intimidated. A lot of times I think when people go to talk to a doctor, go to talk to a naturopath, we get a little bit intimidated, and you and your team have made it really, really easy to understand and really easy to digest. So how that all come about as far as starting Phenom and how long have you guys been doing it for?
Yeah. So we're about 11 years into practice now. So we've had the clinic in Burlington going for, I guess, 9 of those years. So the theme was always to optimize people, right? So how can we figure out what to do to optimize people from the inside out, performance wise? And many of my first patients were pro athletes. So I had a couple of months to figure out what are the big impact things, like how can we really make a huge difference in the way someone feels and performs quickly? What kind of things matter the most, and how can we kind of hone in on those things to really make that change happen? And then sort of things have just evolved from there. So since then I've worked with, tons of Olympic athletes, NHL players, UFC fighters, wrestlers, Olympic wrestlers, like all kinds of people with the general theme of optimizing themselves. So we're kind of a wellness performance-based clinic. We have 4 naturopathic doctors and functional medicine practitioners on staff. And we have a mental performance coach, strength and conditioning coach, and we're kind of a work as a collaborative team to optimize people.
So kind of cover all the areas, obviously, if somebody comes to you and wants to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a kind of a system that we run through, but everything was sort of designed based on athletes. So we use that same system now to optimize anyone, whether you're a 9-to-5 person or you just want to feel better and function better. And the biggest thing I think we've realized is that most people have no idea how good they're supposed to feel and perform. We just settle into whatever normal we have, and that becomes your new standard over time. And the longer you're in that sort of same rhythm of suboptimal, that just becomes your reality. And I've seen that with like the really eye-opening experience was having an Olympic gold medalist say, wow, I had no idea how much better I could be feeling and performing by adjusting gut health, optimizing hormones, fixing my nutrition, customizing my nutrition, all those steps that we take people through. I think people have no idea. So if someone who's at the top of the game and the top of their sport is feeling like that. We've had the same feedback from UFC, top UFC fighters, NHL players, kind of all the way along. That's been the biggest piece of feedback, I think, consistently over the years.
Yeah, because I think when you think of like, like an Olympic gold medalist or somebody competing in the UFC or in mixed martial arts or the NHL or pro hockey, whatever that is, I mean, we look at them as outsiders being like, man, they're elite, they're dialed in, they're fit, you know what I mean? So for them to be able to optimize what they're doing, there's no doubt that guys like myself that, because as I was reading your website, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna hit on all these points. You're just like, does this guy know me? Like this, like what? Like I drink too much coffee. And as I'm reading, I'm kind of like tweaking my neck. I'm like, oh man, my neck is a little tight, like I gotta talk to Callum, man. I gotta get fixed up because I'm 43 now. So, is there any hope for me to become an elite athlete again, Callum? Talk to me. Is there any hope for me to get back to the Olympics for the first
I don't know if we can work miracles or not, but we could definitely get you going a little better than you are now for sure.
Right.
But you know what? Crazy story. We have a guy who's in his 70s, best he's felt ever. He's saying like feels great physically, feels great. He's cycling 100K per ride right now.
No way.
He's increased his power output on the bike. He has all the metrics, like he measures everything with this. He's pretty serious, like cyclist.
Yeah, cool.
Measures like quad strength, and like he has a physio team that kind of looks at. So it's crazy. Like when you start to optimize the things that really matter, how much better you can get quickly.
Oh, that's cool, man. And just real quick, Mitch, you've had a lot of guys that you work with on the strength and conditioning side that have gone through Callum's process. And we're going to get in more depth on what exactly that is, Callum. But what have you noticed, or what is some of the feedback that you've had kind of on the ground floor with it, Mitch, as far as, and I know you've gone through it as well, but what's some of the feedback that you've received from some of the guys?
Well, I mean, that's what got me into it. So a bunch of the guys, Boone was the first person, Boone Jenner was the first person that kind of started talking about it. And then a couple of the other guys started to filter in. Callum and I started connecting a little bit more. And then I went through the process of, doing the saliva testing, the blood testing, got my results back. And at this point I was honestly feeling like pretty good, or I thought I was feeling pretty good. I try to take care of my, I sleep 8 to 9 ish hours a night. I'm conscious of what I'm eating. Obviously I'm human and I'll have stuff, and I still do. But then once Callum got me on a specific supplement protocol, I was honestly within days feeling a huge difference, sleeping the same number of hours, but I could tell when I was waking up, I was feeling more restful. Everything, even body fat, went down a ton, and I wasn't changing the way I was eating, but I was just implementing some of the little things. And one thing we talked about before that I was really impressed with, because I've gone to naturopaths, dietitians, all that before. And a lot of times you'll go in and walk away with like an encyclopedia of stuff that they want you to try to change. Yeah. Whereas with Callum, what I loved, and I think is such a huge part of why it works so well, is that it's one or two high impact things. I feel like every time we meet, and those they're very manageable things to change. And then after a couple of weeks, we'll meet again and then kind of change what those high impact things are. Maybe it stays the same, or maybe they do shift, but everything's like bite-sized pieces, and you notice a difference right away. And then everyone, the players obviously have, but I've also recommended some other people to Callum, more your everyday kind of people, just feeling tired, sluggish, and same thing. They've some of them gone, say it's changed their life in many ways. So yeah, it's been unbelievable.
Awesome. And for anyone listening, I don't want you to think like we're doing a commercial here on Callum.
No,
because I don't want.
Thanks, guys. How much do I owe you for this?
I'll talk about it later. But I think I really wanted to have Callum on, because I think this is really, really important because and we've all said this before, right? I look at myself now and I'm like, man, if I knew what I know now back when I was 22 or 21 or 19, what could I have changed that would have been better, And so I really wanted to have you on just to inform people, parents and players and coaches, that there's stuff like this out there that you've got to, and it's not crazy expensive. It's not crazy. I know you talk about saliva tests and blood tests. Like we're talking about a swab and a pick. It's not a big deal. And it's something that could definitely impact your performance or even just your quality of life for a lot of people. So I think I want to get in the weeds on a little bit, because I think it's important for people to understand the process of how this happens, or how you even get started in it. So Callum, if I was going to come to you, and I want to, obviously on your website, it's easily laid out and you've got a lot of like really good. The other thing if I go to a website, just because we're all in this, everybody really is in this industry where you're checking stuff out online, you're buying stuff online. And I get really irritated at like too many pop-ups or too many, and your call to actions are really subtle and great. Like sign up for the newsletter or book now. They're really simple. So let's say I'm on the website, I'm going to book now, or I'm going to sign up for the newsletter. What's the process for me to kind of get, well, actually, what's the process for me to feeling unbelievable again?
Just in like a 1, 2, 3 step process.
Yeah. Like, can I do this today? Like this afternoon? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a couple of routes you can go. So we have some new online programs we developed so people can work through at their own pace and work through each big body system. So over the years, we figured out, what things really matter. So we go into the 3 big body systems that we put together with our kind of methodology. So hormone system, gut system, and then your detox system. If you can get those 3 big pieces optimized, you can really build a solid foundation for peak performance. So when someone does an online program, we're working through building out all those systems and showing you exactly what to do, kind of like a step-by-step process. And then a similar process if you come and work with us one-on-one. So we're doing most stuff virtually now. As long as you're in Ontario, we can do everything virtually based on the medical board. And then you can come into the clinic as well. So we would do an assessment. So like, let's say you were coming in, Dwayne, you would get an assessment ahead of time where you'd fill out a questionnaire based on like, what's your energy level like? How does it fluctuate throughout the day? Tell me about your sleep. Are you getting interruptions, with sleep at night? Do you have pain? What's your stress level like? What are you currently eating? What are you taking for supplements? What do you do for a living? So we kind of get an in-depth look at who you are before we even like sit down together. And then when we do our actual assessment, which is about 45 to 60 minutes, we'll go into detail on specific areas that don't look right. Like if your energy is like going up and down throughout the day, you're waking in the middle of the night, you're waking up not feeling rested, you feel bloated, you have brain fog, we'll kind of dive into some of those specifics. And then what we're really good at is figuring out how to customize testing to get more information. So we have an extensive background in functional medicine, which is advanced lab testing. We can do all the conventional testing as well, like standard blood work and standard stuff like that you'd get at your family doc, which we look at as well. But we do utilize a lot of functional testing to get more detail. So that's where, let's say you're having a ton of energy issues, energy is crashing throughout the day, sleep patterns are off. We might do a saliva hormone panel like I did with Mitch.
Okay.
So you do 4 saliva samples in one day, and we get to see your active hormone rhythm throughout the day and what's happening with some of those big hormones like cortisol and DHEA, for example. If you're having a lot of gut issues or bloating, or for some of the hockey guys too, some of the issues, they may not be absorbing nutrients well. So we might look at blood testing to see, what foods are going to work best with your system and what foods are causing irritation, inflammation in your body. We might do stool testing. We have a whole host of tests that we can run, but we customize it based on the individual and what systems they have kind of the most issues with. And we'll start at the deepest layer and work out from there.
Okay.
So our whole philosophy is optimize from the inside out. So we want to go to the deepest level, find out issues there. And when you do it that way, you get improvements in a lot of areas that you never really were expecting to see improvements. So when you start fixing things from the base level, and we see there's sort of red flags that we're looking for, that when we're going through questioning in our actual assessment, we're like checking the boxes. Okay, this looks like all hormone stuff. This looks like gut stuff. This looks like metabolism or liver stuff or whatever it may be. I think our staff has become really skilled at figuring that stuff out quickly. So we kind of can cut to the chase, test the system, get in-depth information, and then build a precision plan off of that. Like all of our methods are designed off of like pro athletes. Like I had 2 to 3 months to optimize the first guys I worked with.
Yeah.
And get like big impact results, right? So we can't be trying this, trying that, try this. It's like, let's figure out what areas need to be improved and go and fix them right away.
And I love that, because obviously you've got a sample size now over the last 10 years, right? And you've got good data on stuff, which is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, even to this day, you can bring your car into a garage and it's making a sound, and you got to bring it back 6 times to get that sound dealt with, which is ridiculous, right? So I think that this, to me, like, just to make it really simple, like if I can go in and you've already got my stuff kind of categorized into different categories, you've seen a lot of it, you're like, it's probably going to be in these categories, I think is huge. Now, talk about gut as one of those kind of systems. And the gut, I don't think a lot of people recognize or understand how important our gut is. And we hear terms like gut biome and things like that. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I'm bad at this too. You see gut biome, take this supplement. All right, let's buy it online. Let's do that. Right. But what does that even mean? Right. So for gut biome, for instance, or that gut, like, we have, everything's got to go through our gut. Obviously, I want to talk about gut and then detox real quick, because the detox system, I think, is really important as well. But when you talk about gut and gut biome, how important is that? And how hard is it to change your gut biome and get that kind of move in the right way, basically?
Yeah, it's super important. And this is another reason why I built out a hockey program for this reason, because I think that with all the athletes that I've worked with, hockey players are a little bit behind in some of the performance medicine areas, and some of the evidence-based things that we're doing, they're not familiar with. Like a lot of our Olympic athletes and MMA fighters will contact us looking for, can you test my hormones? Can you test my gut? Can you look at my gut bacteria? Can you look at these? I've never had a hockey guy inquire about that on their own, right? Just maybe from other guys they've heard of. But yeah, so the gut biome stuff is so important for, number one is like for mood and motivation. Like up to 95% of your serotonin is made in your gut. So serotonin is your mental well-being, motivation, like brain chemical. And that's what's a lot of like antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds are made to do, is to trap serotonin in your brain so you can kind of feel better, right? But 95% of that is made in your gut. So the connection between gut and brain is massive. Like your gut and brain are communicating back and forth with each other on a constant basis, more than any two other organ systems. Probably in the last 15 years, gut health and brain health, gut and brain connection has been sort of the emerging field in medicine, I would say. Like it's been very hot topic, because when you can improve the gut, you can improve so many aspects of your well-being from a performance point, but from a mental performance point too. Yeah. So you've got 3 to 5 pounds of gut bacteria, which is crazy to think about, like 3 to 5 pounds of that in your gut. So, if we're finding that people have gut issues, and we can actually test for what strains of bacteria you have in your gut, which ones are missing, for example, and we can plug in those specific ones to replenish your gut to make sure that it's optimal, like bacteria wise. But there's a couple of layers to gut health. It's like gut bacteria, your gut wall, which absorbs all your nutrients, which is huge for hockey players, because you could be focusing your attention on putting good food into your system, but if you're not absorbing it, you can't use those nutrients anyways. Yeah. Like that's a huge problem I see with a lot of our hockey guys. And then basically how well you're breaking down those nutrients, like how well your and digestive enzymes are working. So when you say gut health, people always think of like probiotics and take all the probiotics, which is sort of like a blanket over top of things. So you can get some temporary improvement. But what we're looking for is long lasting improvements that, basically you have a solid foundation you can build off, and then you can really take your performance to really new heights. So gut health is central because it's going to impact mood, energy, nutrient absorption, immune function. 70% of your immune system is based in your gut. So there's so many implications for gut health, and everyone's a little bit specific in terms of that. Even the types of foods that work best for you may not be the types of foods that work best for everyone, right? So a lot of hockey guys will ask me that, what diet should I eat? Should I do like keto? Should I be vegan? What should I be doing? Right. But really it depends on the individual. We always customize that to figure out what foods work best for you, because it will impact your gut. Right.
Well, I think that's so important. Mitch, you got something?
I just wanted to touch on like this, like how important the specificity of this stuff is. So, I mean, even for people out there who are trying to self-educate, the amount of marketing around gut health and different types of diets, and they can be very convincing as this is the thing for you. And even with myself, I did a lot of courses when I was younger. One of them was Biosignature that talked a lot about testosterone, cortisol, estrogen, and balancing those things. And the way that it was assessed in this particular way was with calipers. So based on 12 different sites in your body, it would show, or try to show what hormones were out of balance. But my point is that even with that is not enough to know. Like the only way to really know is through what Callum is doing. And I've been aware of that there's people out there like Callum for quite a while that are looking at blood, saliva, and all these different ways to pinpoint what the real issue is. But it's not easy to find. So it took, I'd say, 10 years to find a guy like Callum, when I actually did the protocols that he targeted, I could see a huge difference. So I guess what I'm trying to say is just that the specificity that Callum's talking about is unbelievably important. And there's no way of knowing how to do that without the type of education that he has. So you can convince yourself that you know, and that this is what you need to do, or that's what you need to do, but you're just shooting in the dark, unless you have someone that's really looking at your biochemistry in the right ways.
Well, not even that. I think you're spinning your tires. You're wasting time trial and erroring maybe on yourself, right? When there is actual data out there that can help speed up that process. And I think a lot of us now are very well aware, like, time is very valuable, right? Whether it's time is money, or time is with family, or time is whatever, but time is huge. So if you can speed that up by, going to Callum and getting those things, I think is huge. And I think one thing you said that I want to touch on real quick is everybody's different. So, I just said this exact same thing to a family I was talking to the other day about a young boy, and just knowing, like, I was a different body type than my buddies when I was growing up and playing hockey, and my buddies could, they could crush 6 Boston creams and not even show an ounce of anything. I'd walk by those 6 Boston creams and sniff them, and I would gain weight. There's just, I had a different makeup, I had a different body. So everyone's different on how you adapt to food, how you adapt to exercise, even exercise, right, Mitch? Like, there's thousands of ways to get to your goal of getting fit. And you may like running, you may like biking, you may like working out, you got to find certain things that suit your body and that fit. And I think this is the same thing. And if you don't know, you don't know. So you're trying all these, these nice flashy marketing things, and this will change your gut biome, and eat yogurt, and, drink whatever. And, so I think this is really, really important, especially for, anybody, but especially for those, like you're saying, those athletes that want to get that little 1% or that little jump or that little, that little edge on people or on competition. I think this is huge.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back, we had one of the first Olympic athletes I was working with was like, it's a no-brainer to figure out kind of what foods work best for you, right? Like, if you don't know what foods work best for you, some of the most common, I'll kind of maybe give an example, because some of the foods that may seem healthy may not be working well for you, which we did some testing with Mitch too, some antibody testing. But so things like dairy, eggs, gluten, tree nuts, soy would be like some of the most common ones. And pea protein was another one, probably top 6 ones you see most commonly coming back that don't work for people on blood testing.
Right.
If you don't know what foods are working well for you, and you're putting them in your system every day, you could see some real negative effects in terms of performance. Such a simple thing to adjust, right? Yeah, she was saying it's a no-brainer to know that, because you could just be making mistakes all the time, right? Yeah. And some new research, especially for hockey guys, because hockey is such a carb dependent sport, like you need carbs to fire muscles and fire your nervous system. The way that people respond to carbs is different between individuals. I don't know if you guys have seen some of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally.
But like, for example, like all 3 of us could have rice for lunch and go and train. And the difference in terms of performance and the way your body's handling blood sugar can be totally different between all 3 of us. We could all have oats and a totally different response. We could all have bread or pasta, totally different response. So that's how specific things are with an individual. So when we get to the more advanced stuff with some of the pro athletes, we can dial in, what carbs they should be actually using to fuel themselves for training and for games, for game day and things like that.
What testing protocols are you using to look at that stuff? Like, is that through the blood testing, or is that through saliva, or what are you looking to target that?
Yeah, we're looking at blood testing, blood testing for insulin and glucose.
Okay.
So you can check someone's response.
Separate from the food sensitivity testing, you're looking at insulin and glucose.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a different
so you can see so like, let's say, for example, you have blood sugar stays really high, doesn't regulate, doesn't come down, then that wouldn't be an ideal carb for you, right? Because you need to get that glucose into your muscles and into your nervous system. Gotcha. And just to your point too, Dwayne, on the specificity of it for individuals, like 5% of our gut bacteria is the same between individuals.
Okay.
But 95% of our genes are the same between individuals.
Wow.
So only 5% of our gut bacteria is the same between like us three. So right there, the type of fiber, the type of carbs, the type of fruit and vegetables that would respond to you would be different.
Yeah. This is crazy. I almost feel like I've been cheated my whole life not knowing this
It's
stuff,
unbelievable.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think back to like when I was in university, you know, some of the, you know, I did a pretty heavy science program, biology degree in university. And, you know, I would go and study, have like chocolate milk and a mini pepperoni pizza and go and study trying to study physics and cell biology and
crashing,
be falling asleep at my desk. Right. So if I would have known what I know now, like how much better I could have been functioning and performing. I thought I was doing pretty good in those days, like, you know, getting decent grades and things like that. But, yeah, I wish I would have known all the things I know now back then.
Totally, man. Oh, I'm just thinking about like how many times I crashed in the afternoon, right? Literally just falling asleep at my computer in class, just bobbing. Like,
yeah.
No, for sure. Now,
a lot of people are going heavy caffeine to compensate for the energy, right? So like they're eating a certain way, energy's crashing, not connecting it to the food, but just kind of overriding it, which is fine. And caffeine is an awesome performance supplement. One of the, you know, there's two, you know, with the most evidence behind them, caffeine and creatine, two most like evidence-based performance supplements. But caffeine, you have to be strategic on when you're using it to get the most out of it.
Right.
So it's like, if you're just using it all the time, then you're covering up some underlying issues that your body's not actually working the way it should. You're just overriding it. Right. So yeah, caffeine should be an hour after waking, like not right away, and then before noon, because the half-life is 5 hours. So if you had like 400 milligrams at 5 p.m., that means you'd still have 200 milligrams in your system at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And then 5 hours after, you still have 100 milligrams in your system. So try to sleep well and restfully and restoratively with 100 milligrams of caffeine in your system, right? Doesn't really work that way, you know?
Well, looks like I'm changing one of my habits.
Yeah.
Hey, Cal, what would you say to those people that say that, like, you know, I can have a coffee right before bed and I sleep fine? Like, what's happening with them? Because that I can't even imagine that. I can't drink coffee past 11 a.m.
I'm not.
How do you, like, what is that? Does that just mean that they're just so?
Well, that's
the caffeine.
That's a great question though, Callum. And I want to hear your answer because I'm that guy. Like sometimes I'll have a small coffee after dinner, and kind of getting the kids ready for bed, whatever. I'll have a coffee, and for me, it's not even the caffeine. I'm not taking it because I want to bump or anything like that at all. I really enjoy really, really hot fluids. So I can drink hot water. I like hot tea, but I really like hot coffee, like taste coffee. But I do that. And as you're saying this, I'm like, I'm shutting this down today. Like I'm not going to have, because it probably does affect my sleep for sure. But how come? Because I sleep, I don't find I have bad sleeps, but I'm also not like monitoring my sleep. So maybe I'm sleeping through the night, but maybe I'm having terrible sleeps if I did actually monitor them a little bit better, you know?
Yeah. So two things. One is you're probably a fast metabolizer of caffeine. So everyone, there's two genetic variants, like either you're a fast metabolizer or a slow metabolizer. And you can test this on genetic testing. We'll do some genetic testing with some of our patients as well. So if you're a fast metabolizer, it means the caffeine gets processed quickly through your body, which is a good thing. So you don't feel jittery. You don't feel like hyperstimulated. You can kind of tolerate a higher dose. If you're a slow metabolizer, you'll feel jittery and you'll feel anxious. You'll feel off with it. So you're probably a fast metabolizer, and you've probably been doing that for the caffeine for a long time, where it's called like an attenuation period. So past 23 days of having caffeine straight, your body kind of gets used to the response. So it's not such a drastic response.
Right.
You probably just like the flavor. You feel okay. You can fall asleep. But with that amount of caffeine going in, like an espresso shot or something after dinner?
No, it'd just be like just a cup of like, a blonde roast or dark roast. Nothing too.
Yeah. So I'd be curious to see if you're monitoring your sleep with some different metrics. Like you want to be getting 20% of your sleep in deep sleep.
Yeah.
And a lot of the new wearables, you can measure that, like the Whoop Band or Oura Ring or Apple Watch or whatever, they have those scores.
Yeah.
And I'd also be curious to see your HRV score. Like we use HRV a lot with our athletes to monitor readiness and recovery and things like that. But I'm curious to see those two numbers with you to see if you've just gotten used to sort of not sleeping as deeply as you could.
Totally. I guarantee I've just become accustomed to too much caffeine and my body just used to it. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying like this is something that I'll definitely look at, but I'm going to say this out here just to keep myself accountable. But I'm going to go through the process with you for sure when we're done this. And I want to have you back on after I go through it for, however long that the protocol is, or like however long that I, kind of, or you feel fit or whatever. But I'd like to have you back on and chat a little bit about my experience, and then kind of dive into some other stuff. Cause I know in an hour or hour and a half or however long we go, we're not going to be able to cover everything, right? There's going to be some stuff that obviously we're going to have left out, unfortunately. But one other thing too is the detox part of it, because I think, whether you're having coffee or you're having a glass of wine or 5 bottles of wine, whatever you're having, like how's the body detoxing this stuff, and how important is that for, again, this whole, optimization of the body type thing?
Yeah, it is important for a number of reasons. One is like, so there's so many gut issues, number one. So anything that doesn't get processed well in the gut, the liver has to pick up the extra work. So your liver is like a giant filter, right? So it's your main detox organ. So anything you're taking in food-wise, drink-wise, air, environmental has to go through the liver. It's called like a first pass. So it'll filter out all the bad stuff, get rid of it, keep the good stuff. So our liver is already working like 24/7. That's just like, and then on top of that, if you're having a lot of alcohol, if you're maybe not eating the best food, not making the best food choices, you can kind of, let's say, slow down that or make that liver function sluggish.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of those issues. And the way that you'll see it in symptom wise could be skin issues. So skin breakouts, eczema, psoriasis, anything that's not getting processed properly is going to clear out through the skin. You'll see metabolism issues. You'll see male and female hormone issues, because your liver recycles all your big hormones: cortisol, DHEA, thyroid, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, all get recycled and kind of pushed through the liver to get kind of re-established. So we do see liver issues a lot, but I think it's stemming from so many gut issues overloading the liver, and then whatever people are doing on top of that.
Right.
So yeah, so we'll do like sort of a liver reset process where we'll kind of take the burden off the liver with the way people are eating. And then we'll use specific nutrients to enhance how your liver is working over a short period of time. But yeah, sometimes metabolically, we can get some big changes. Like we can see big hormone shifts just by optimizing liver function, because all those hormones are going through there. We get to see big like metabolism shifts. We had someone yesterday, actually, we did a 14-day liver reset. 14 pounds down in 14 days.
No way.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. And this is someone who was, documenting her weight all the time. Like she had a journal of her weight every day for like 2 years written down in her notes on her phone.
Oh, wow.
And it was always like 1 pound fluctuations, like Monday, 1 pound down, Tuesday, 1 pound up, Thursday, like that over a long period of time.
And then 14 pounds in 14 days.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we did a pretty good reset, changed up what she was doing. Sometimes you got to have a big change to get a big result with people, right? Yeah. And I think for the most part, most people are trying their best. It's not a lack of effort. I just think that they don't have the right insight and couple key strategies to make big impact changes in those areas they're trying to improve. Yeah, like they could be trying 10 things on their own, and those aren't the right ones.
But I also think that a lot of people don't seek out help. And that could be in any field. It could be financial advising. It could be in what you're doing, Callum. It could be what Mitch is doing in strength and conditioning. Like, people aren't seeking out the right people, or they're getting bad information. So again, we'll go back to this time thing. They're just wasting time, and they're doing stuff that's probably not as productive as it should be. And we all do it. I'm not blaming anybody. Everyone does it. You know what I mean? But so knowing this stuff now, the worst thing I could do right now is be like, all right, this is great. Thanks a lot for coming on. See you later. And then just shut her down and then go back to drinking my coffee at night. I know that I already know this, and Mitch knows me well. Like, there's tons of things in my life that I do not do well when it comes to nutrition or exercise or things like that, so I'd like to live past 43. That's my goal. So far, I'm doing that. But, I want to be healthy at 60, 70, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think this is really, really important. And even hearing, a story about somebody like the client that you just mentioned, if she is documenting her weight, for 2 years, let's say, she's dialed into getting better. Like, she's taking the time to like get on the scale every day. She, so now she meets somebody like you. For her, I don't think they are probably big changes that you made, but she's probably into doing it because she's put in a lot of time just on her own trying to figure this stuff out. So if you guys, if you and your team can speed that up, that's massive.
On that point too, like, I just feel like it's so much easier to buy into the process when you have, one, all the data that you get from the tests, and then two, having an unbelievable explanation as to how these things are going to impact the changes that you're looking to get. I mean, if you've been trying things over and over and over again, I mean, you almost need that evidence to be like, okay, this is different. This time is going to be different because now I know that this is what's happening and this is what I need to do to actually get a result. Like, I feel like for me too, even just to buy into the whole process, it was so nice to have the evidence right in front of me, and then the explanation as to, how the things that I was going to change were going to work. And like I said earlier, within a couple of days, it was like crazy how quickly. And I've talked to many other people that have seen. I've had a lot of people see Callum now who said the same thing. Like, I just woke up, like, I just started the stuff yesterday. I feel like kind of better today.
Yeah.
Funny,
and that's the thing though. Like, we believe in like precision medicine. So if we can see exactly what the problem is, we can go right for it and improve it. But if you're sort of like unsure of what the problem is, then you're tiptoeing a little bit. It's like, well, I don't really know. Let's try this. Let's try that. Right. Whereas, when you know, like, that you get an athlete coming to you guys for training and you're like, look, I can see where your weak point is in physically, we need to improve this. Like, let's just go and fix this. Right. You feel 100% like dialed in to go get that part.
And see, that's where I just see so much value in what Callum does and have so much respect for the education and the time that he's put into perfecting what he does, because it's exactly what he said. When someone comes to us, we have a process to identify exactly what we need to work on from a strength and conditioning standpoint. And, it's this exact same thing, but for nutrition and optimizing really all systems of your body, which, I could see right away that system worked and that it's well thought out and it's easy to follow. And one thing that I see in the media quite a bit, and this is something I want to bring up, is I've talked to this about kind of the process with a couple different people, and some of them say, oh, well, I've heard of that food sensitivity stuff. Like, it's just the same thing that comes back every time and it's not reliable. Now, I want to start by saying I've seen dozens of people that have gone to you and the stuff that comes back is different every time. So there's absolutely no way that it's the same thing coming back. But are there different, providers for that information and have you heard this stuff before from other people? I know with what you're doing, I've seen it different across the board, but are there scams out there?
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. And that's, it must be really hard for the public, right? Like, even for me, this is my field where I kind of can weed things out pretty quickly when I see it.
Yeah.
But I can see how people could get confused on different things, right? No, but we spent a lot of time sourcing specific labs and tests that we use that are reliable. Like, even for our hormone testing, like, we spent a lot of time figuring out where can we get reliable, reproducible numbers here that we can actually use. Because if we're basing methods off of accurate information, then we need to be able to trust in that, right? So the blood testing that we're doing for IgG antibodies, like food intolerances, food reactivities. I think we've sourced a good place to get it from, but it's not only that, it's like, what do you do with the information?
Yeah, that's fair too. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, these foods come back on here. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that you can't have these foods ever again. What it means is we need to reset your gut and reset your system, clear out inflammation you have, rebuild your gut, and then customize your nutrition for long-term performance. That's what it means, right?
That's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a hockey guy and you don't do well with eggs and they're really reactive for you, guess what? The game day, you're not going to be having eggs on the game day because you're going to feel sluggish and slow and sharp and foggy. You want to be the opposite of that for performance wise, right? So I think it's more not only the type of getting the right information, but then how to utilize that information to get the results. Just like you guys, right? Like if you find someone can't shoot properly, well, why can't they shoot properly? You're going to have a specific reason for improving that. Or if someone's hamstrings are weak, you're going to go into figuring out, how can we get their hamstrings strong? What makes sense for this person, right?
Yeah, totally.
I think one of the problems, and I'm going to go back to what Mitch said, because I think this is really important for people out there, myself included, but how do we differentiate from what you're doing, Callum, which I feel is like very elite, high level, and that guy down the road and that girl down the other side of the road that are doing the same thing, like, kind of, they're in the same field. There's, technically, but because to your point, somebody can come to me and want to work on shooting, and I would address it one way, and then they can go down the street and work with somebody else and they would address it totally another way. Yeah. And what, I feel my way is right. They feel their way is right. And their way is completely wrong. And I'm not carving anybody, but you know what I mean? Right. Same with Mitch. Like somebody can come to Mitch's gym and Mitch's training center and work with his coaches, and they're not allowed to do a squat because they're not flexible enough. But they can go down the street and the guys got them and the girls have got them squatting 300 pounds, and they're not they shouldn't be doing that. Right. So if I'm just a mom or a dad and I'm going out, how do I figure out who's good and who's not? I know word of mouth is huge, and I always recommend that. Ask people in the field, ask people that have used products before, and find out, what works, what doesn't work. But is there any other ways in your field that somebody could do a little bit of research and figure out, okay, these guys are legit, this crew's legit, this crew's maybe not so legit?
Yeah, I think number one is you want to have someone who's a board certified naturopathic doctor.
That's good. That's number one. Yeah, we'll start there. Okay.
Yeah, because that's totally different. And I think, sometimes I forget that because I've been doing this for so long. I just feel like everybody knows, but there's a huge difference between someone who's just sort of doing some nutrition on the side and recommending some supplements. Like to become a naturopathic doctor, you've got to have the prerequisites to go into medical school, go through the whole program to be a naturopathic doctor, where you're trained like a primary care, like you're trained like a family doctor is. Yeah. So you know how to diagnose, you know how to interpret all sorts of things. Like you have a really solid foundation of knowledge. Like that already is that's probably the biggest thing. And then on top of that, if someone's a functional medicine practitioner, then they have advanced training in lab testing, which I think is important. Like we have, as a naturopathic doctor, you have a good scope of understanding of lab results. We go through all training to figure out how to interpret blood reports and all that stuff. So I think that with the functional medicine on top of that, my staff also has a pharmacology license and an IV therapy license. So we have a couple other kind of aspects in there. And then our style and our goal with the people we work with is to get them to their full potential. So I think that kind of, I'd say level of determination is different too. Yeah. Right. Like we're trying to get you to your optimal, and we're used to working with high performers in every field. So we're looking for that as the benchmark, as opposed to just getting you to feel a little bit better than you are now. Like what we're aiming for is different. Yeah. I think that's a differentiator too.
And one thing too, that I would just say, just as Johnny on the street looking up stuff on the internet is, and I said this right at the beginning about your website, is you weren't talking over my head. You weren't trying to validate how smart you are and how smart your people were. You know what I mean? When I was going through your website and looking at all, I went through a bunch of different tabs and I read a lot of the stuff that you have on there. And I was like, I got it. I'm not a doctor. You know what I mean? I know a little bit about science and medicine, but I'm no, so I like that part of it too. Cause man, you on some websites and some of the words they use, and I don't even I have to Google the word to finish my sentence. You know what I mean? It makes no sense. So like, I think that's important too, to just be able to relate to people, whether it's a high performing athlete who's going to get a lot of information off of your literature. And then the other thing too is look people up, look them up on LinkedIn, look them up on different places where you can find out more about these people. And especially if you're going to invest the money and the time to work with somebody, I think it's really important to do that. No matter if it's a strength coach, a skills coach, whatever, you know what I mean? Naturopathic medicine, doesn't matter. Like, I think do that research, but yeah, I think those are great points. So that's really good. Cause it is,
and it has to fit. It has to fit with you too, right? Like I'm sure hockey guys could go to a lot of skills places, but the guys that come to you like your style, like your approach, like what you're doing, like the whole kind of package that you're offering, right? Same with Mitch, right? So I think, the style I think is important. It may not resonate. You may not like our style and like science-based approach, systematic. We're looking at this, you may not like that. And then, that's fine too, right? You go where you feel like it's matching what you like.
I got a couple things here. So one thing that I try to base my own training on is this quote that from Albert Einstein: "If you can't explain it simply, you simply don't understand it well enough," or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And that's one thing to me is like when I go to Callum, like everything he says, I know that his thought process is way up here, but he explains it in a way that, you know, you could explain it to a kindergartner and they would understand it. Yeah. And I try to do the same. And I think that this is a good segue into something Callum and I were talking about the other day. So far, we've talked a lot about the getting towards the more advanced side of what he does. But recently he's developed this online education system for young hockey players. And the way that he's laid it out is, again, it's so simple. It's step by step. Like these are the first things you need to learn about and focus on in a video explaining, you know, whether that's a nutrition related thing, a sleep related thing. But maybe Callum, if you want to talk a little bit more about that and the process and how people can find it and use it, that'd be awesome. Because this is real quick. One more thing. I was mentioning this to Dwayne before. I think that the high level stuff, it really works so much better. Like the blood testing, the saliva testing, when you have a good foundation. And I feel like the course that you're the kind of the education system and that you've put together for young players, it allows them to develop that strong understanding and a foundation of nutrition and health and lifestyle habits, so that when they get to be a little bit older, that stuff is in place, and then they can really optimize through the more specific testing. That's the way that I took it. If you want to explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we put that together, because when we're working one-on-one with somebody, we're going right into some high-level stuff and taking some complicated information and lab results and putting it into simple strategies that you should follow. And most of that has come from working with pro athletes as my first patients, right? Like if I give them 10 things to do and they do 3, we don't get the result. But if I give them 3 really key things to do that are going to give us 98% of the return on those efforts, then those are what we're going to do, right? So I think over the years, we figured out how to really focus in on the stuff that really matters to make a big difference. And then educating people. Like we want our patients to understand what they're doing. Like people are coming in at all different levels. Like I have hockey guys coming in saying, I don't want to understand anything about anything. Just tell me exactly what to do because I want to feel the best and perform the best. We have guys like that. Then we have guys who want to know all the details. So we're happy to explain either way, but the program is designed to teach young players about gut health, about hormones, about circadian rhythm, about how they should eat, how to figure out what foods work best for them, how to build out their nutrition custom to them. So the program kind of walks you through each step of that. So the first part is talking about those 3 big body systems. So they even like have an idea of that even matters, because most guys don't even think those things even matter, right? Mm-hmm. And then we do a process where we pull out foods from their diet. Like we'll pull out eggs, dairy, gluten from their diet. They'll retest in 10 days. They'll put the foods back in. We'll measure their response based on the symptoms they experience. Then we'll build out their nutrition. Then we'll teach them about gut, optimize their gut with specific strategies and challenges to do. And then we'll get their hormones going with circadian rhythm stuff. So the online program is meant to get guys a good foundation. And then as they get a little bit older, we'll get more into the testing of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that, but you're taking these complicated subjects that are important for those young athletes that are looking to optimize themselves to understand. Yeah. And you're taking those complicated things and turning them into a digestible, piece of information so that they can take it, they can use it. So it's not even just like a lecture on, hey, this is what your digestive system looks like and what it does. This is what your digestive system is, and this is what you need to do to optimize it. There's simple, everyday things that you need to work on.
Yeah, it's more so in line with like how this relates to your performance, right? And then, obviously over the years, I've noticed that too. When you talk to athletes, their compliance is amazing when it comes down to like, how does this improve my speed on the ice? Or is this equal to me scoring more goals? Okay, I'll do whatever that is, right? So, So, and then each video clip is like, under 5 minutes. Like some of them are a minute, some of them are 2 minutes. So it's quick information, just the stuff that matters. Because you're right, Dwayne. When you get heavy into the medical stuff, you can lose people right away, right? So
Yeah.
And that defeats the whole purpose. Like, what's the point of me going super complex? If you don't understand what you're doing, you don't follow it because you don't understand it. We don't get the result we want. I mean, there's no point. Right?
You're not trying to educate people to be doctors. You're trying to teach them how to live their best life.
Yeah. And that is, I think, something we've learned over the years is how to gauge the conversation towards kind of what your knowledge level is. Like, you're coming in at a little higher level than other people, like you guys with your training background and hockey background, right? So I can say different things to you that will make sense. But we have patients at our clinic that are cardiologists, family doctors, dentists, different things where I can go a little bit more medical.
At a different level.
Yeah, I can kind of go right into, here's the mechanism of this hormone. This is why this isn't working. This is why your testosterone is moving to estrogen. And we can talk about some crazy detail, right? But for the most part, it's like figuring out what's happening, and the simpler, the better to fix it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Now, if somebody is jumping in on and doing this, and let's say I am who I am, or I'm an executive at an office or a director at a company, and I want to do this. I want to, I got to figure things out. I'm probably not sleeping well. I'm drinking too much. Whatever. What would that next step be then? Contact you. And then what would go on from there? There'd be, like you said, fill out that kind of the questionnaire, get a consult, kind of have that conversation so you guys understand who I am a little bit more, where I'm coming from. And then from there, what would happen after that?
So we have a pretty specific system. So in your assessment, we would figure out if we have to get information, what lab testing we would run with you. If we did run testing, our staff would send kits right to your house. So we'll commonly do like blood testing, saliva, stool, or urine testing, like one of those 4. And then you'll do the testing at your house. We'll follow up in about a month's time when we have all your reports back. We'll go through each report individually and explain everything like on there, what that actually means, how that affects you. And then we have sort of a treatment plan, a performance plan based on that. And then we typically check in with our patients like once a month. Okay. But we can get most things turned around. I mean, keep in mind, we're an optimal performance type of clinic. Like, we're not dealing too much with like chronic disease or chronic illness stuff. Yeah. So, but we can get most things optimized in like a 3-month span.
Okay.
So we're looking to really optimize in that 3-month span, and then show you how to maintain that. And maybe some of those trouble areas for you, we'll recheck those like once a year, for example. Like all of our hockey guys, we're checking functional hormones like at least once or twice a year. We're checking gut health commonly. We're checking food antibodies, blood antibodies at least once a year, because your body will change, right? Like, if you start eating a totally different diet right now, your gut bacteria will change over the course of the next few months. Like, that whole thing will change. So the way you respond to food is going to be different. Right? Yeah. So that's the process. About 3 months to optimize things, and then we show you how to maintain it, and then we'll retest any areas that we're unsure of, kind of where you're at currently. But most times we can measure progress through symptoms and through just performance wise. Like, remember your lifts too, Mitch, like your PRs and strength stuff. Yeah. Like, you could see all your energy improving, sleep improving, recovery, numbers in the gym. So when you see all that, sometimes you don't have to retest. We kind of know.
No, yeah, it was crazy. Like last summer, I was doing a lot of running, and I hadn't done a lot of that in the past. But man, I was like every week, like I was getting way faster, and I was feeling like I could run every single day. I had plenty of energy. It was actually pretty crazy. Like, I felt a huge difference.
And for hockey guys too, like the off season stuff is huge, right? So I think the online program is a great thing, especially with no hockey going on, no training stuff. It's a great way to improve yourself away from the rink.
Totally.
And I think that's a big problem. And I don't know if you guys would notice it too, but I think what's happening in the 23 hours away from the rink in the gym is where most hockey players are missing that opportunity.
100%.
I think a lot of guys, I mean, they're great. They're dialed in for training. They're great, home workouts, in the gym workouts, but what's happening away from the rink?
Yeah. And I mean, like to your point, on our end, it's something we talk about, like how important it is that the other 23 hours a day, you got to be sleeping well. Like, the most advice we give is like, here's what, like, the USA athletes plate, like they kind of have like an idea of what an easy, moderate, and hard training day is. Try to have meals along these lines, but it's enough to get started a little bit. Like, if you're eating Cinnamon Toast Crunch for breakfast every day, then this will help them a little bit. But if they really want to take things to the next level, I think it is following a progression like yours. Whether I think starting with the online program is phenomenal, and I think that makes for better gains later on too, when they actually get to the point where the one-on-one stuff is relevant or more relevant.
Yeah. So something just on that note, real quick, like if you're looking to make a big return on your performance, circadian rhythm drives 80% of how your body works foundationally. And hormones are going to drive, they're the cues to sync your circadian rhythm. So cortisol and melatonin sync that. So think about how many people have like sleep issues or energy issues and things that are like out of sync there.
Maybe talk about this one real quick. Cause I would say 80% of the kids that I work with, like the teenage kids, they're staying up till 2, 3, 4 a.m. playing video games. And then that's even another aspect of things, right? Being in front of a screen until that time is different than if you were just up until that time. It's potentially worse, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe explain what circadian rhythm means. So that a lot of people may not understand what a circadian rhythm is. And then also how, one, staying up till 4 a.m., even if you sleep 8 hours, like even if you're still sleeping 8 hours, 10 hours, how does that affect them in terms of performance? Those are two big things, I think, because I see that all the time. I say something, but I don't think it means as much coming from me as their strength and conditioning coach and not their naturopath or something like that. But touch on that, because it's crazy.
It's a huge one, especially with the online schooling. Kids can get away with
all day,
staying up late and just logging in the morning and log on the computer for school, right? So circadian rhythm is massive, because so what it means is sun up and sun down. So the body's rhythm is driven off that. All of your cells, your organs, everything that's in your body has a clock in it that runs off circadian rhythm. There's even new research showing that your gut, like your internal organs, liver, digestive tract, has light sensors in it that can tell if it's light or dark outside, which is crazy, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. So sun up. So when the sun comes up in the morning, your eyes read the sunlight and you get a burst of cortisol into your bloodstream that goes around and wakes up your body. And it's like the alertness hormone. And then you ride that wave of energy throughout the day. When the sun goes down at night, cortisol drops below a threshold and your sleep hormones kick in. But you need cortisol to drop below a threshold for your sleep hormones to really kick in. And that's where the screens at night are problematic, because the screens give blue light, which stimulates cortisol release in the brain. So as you're supposed to be trying to get that cortisol down to prepare you for deep sleep, you got the screen in front of your face, which is raising it up. So it doesn't allow your sleep hormones to kick in fully. And the later you are awake, you're missing most of that darkness. Like the way the body's designed is designed without artificial light, right? So if the sun went down outside, you'd have to be going to sleep at that time, right? So so you want to be, it sounds obvious to say it this way, but you want to be sleeping most of the time when it's dark out, be awake when it's light out, because your whole body's performance and the way that it functions is driven off that, being in sync with that. Right. So one of the easiest ways to resynchronize it is getting first morning sunlight. So like 10 to 15 minutes first morning sunlight will cue your brain to kickstart that process and get you in sync with what your circadian rhythm should be doing. Which crazy, when you start doing that with people, all of a sudden their sleep gets better.
So wake up, get outside.
But they're so confused, right? Hey, wait a minute, I did something in the morning. How is that impacting my sleep? But it's giving your body the cues to work with. And for guys who are on the road and our athletes who are traveling, I'll have them use a Verilux light. It's like the size of an iPad, and it creates 10,000 lux of light, which replicates sunlight. So let's say you're in your hotel room, you're playing in the NHL, and you don't have access. It's too cold out. You can't really get the direct light. We'll have guys just open up it looks like a little iPad, just flip it on, and you'll get 10, 15 minutes indirect light, which cues your energy, performance, and helps for recovery and sleep at the end of the day as well.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a huge gap people are missing.
One other thing too here, you see different research and some things saying that for the younger populations, sometimes staying up a little bit later and sleeping in a little bit more can fit their biochemistry. What is that a real thing, or is that how much variation is there? Like, I'm sure staying up till 4 a.m. is not the solution for a teenager, but do teenagers potentially respond well to staying up a little later and sleeping in a little more, or is that dependent on too many other factors too?
Oh, I think you're talking about the school study, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So they looked at kids who were able to sleep in a little bit more in the morning, and then school performance scores, like marks in school. Mm-hmm. And you had better marks for the kids who started later. It's more in response to longer duration of sleep.
Okay, because they need more sleep. They should still be going to bed at the same times, but maybe staying in bed a little longer. Yes, yeah. Because I think they were showing that if school times start so early, then your wake time is so much earlier, so you're cutting that time short. Yeah, I think they're moving out starting times in school for a lot of schools because of that, the performance markers. And you need more recovery. The younger you are, you need more sleep and more recovery. Even look at guys like LeBron James, right? I think he's getting 14 hours of sleep or something crazy. Something crazy, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
12, 14 hours of sleep, something like that.
Oh,
yeah.
Something crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the measuring tools to measure that, because everyone's a little bit different. There's a small portion of the population that can get away with less sleep and still do okay. But if you're measuring like deep sleep percentage, for example, that'll give you a good idea if you're getting good enough, like a recharge.
Right.
Like you want to get the metrics are, you want to get at least 20% deep sleep, and you want to get at least 7 hours duration of sleep.
Totally. Yeah. And that's more for your, say, adult population. Like, whereas like a teenager would maybe be closer to anywhere from maybe say 8 to 12 or something along those lines. Yeah. Even like for a lot of the young athletes that we work with, I'll usually say on the weekends, maybe sleep in a little bit later. Like, just don't set an alarm, just get up when you get up, just to get that extra little bit in. But I think the sleep portion is huge, and the blue light thing is something that goes against optimal sleep, you know. Well, one last, just to confirm this, they should still be going down to bed around when the sun goes down. Similar. Yeah. Okay.
I know it's unrealistic.
No excuse to stay up until 1 a.m. or 2 or 3 or anything like that. Yeah. Good.
And you can see the performance side, right? I'm sure you can see the guys who are.
Yeah, it's mad.
It's madness, right? Yeah. There's a stat on that too. So 1 night of disturbed sleep will slow your metabolic rate. So 1 night of disturbed sleep will slow it down. So think about how many people are having light sleep or waking in at night or waking up at different times of the night. And if you're waking between 2 and 5 a.m., that's a cortisol rhythm problem, which a lot of people have, where it's like, I'm waking up at 2:30 in the morning and they're noticing like they're so awake, they could like do a workout, they could read a book. They're like that awake. That's a cortisol rhythm problem.
Right. Where some of the earlier times, right? Like if you're within the first 2 hours of falling asleep, waking up, a lot of times that can be like a blood sugar thing or different times like that. Yeah.
If you can't fall, you're right. If you can't fall asleep, it's more of a cortisol melatonin issue. Cortisol is not falling quick enough. I see a lot of our pro hockey players at the end of the season, their nighttime cortisol is like, their curve goes like low in the morning and then up at night.
You're used to playing, right?
Yeah. So you have to kind of knock that down to allow them to retrain that rhythm. The whole body runs off of rhythms, right? So you want to get in the right rhythm and then keep it going.
Right.
That's really interesting, man. So basically, I mean, what I'm getting out of this whole thing is nobody should ever have children. Right? Is that kind of accurate? Okay, because like they just keep you up all the time. Like,
quick summary.
Okay, because that's all I was hearing. No, I'm kidding. No, that is really interesting, man. And that's another thing too. And I like to be honest on this podcast, obviously, but I've gotten into a bad rhythm over the last, over this pandemic, really, where I'm at home with the kids for when we're locked down. I'm at home with the kids during the day for school. And then my wife's working. She gets home. We have dinner. We hang out. The kids go to bed. And then I'll stay up till 10, 11, 12 on my computer, sending whatever, doing emails, whatever. You know what I mean? And I'm not making excuses. Oh, I got to work. That's why I work. But it's just, and I'm up till 12 sometimes, 11, 12, 1. And I'm like, what am I? And I literally am always like, what am I doing? Why? I'm mad at myself, but then I do it again the next night or 2 nights later. It's like, holy bad. It's just a bad, so I like this stuff because sometimes you need to like a kick in the ass a little bit to be like, hey, you're old enough to make your own decisions here. You can't blame your kids anymore. You got to get on with it here, buddy.
Yeah. It's tough for parents too, because you get a few hours at the end of the day that nobody's like looking forward to. I'm just going to go right to bed at 9 when my kids go down. You want to do something enjoyable for yourself, right? Yeah. So there's a balance there, and depending on your goals too, right? Like if you're looking to jump into the Stanley Cup playoffs next week, Dwayne, we might have to fix those sleep patterns a little bit.
Yeah,
but it depends, right? And there's no repercussions for some people who are, if you're up really late, you don't have to be up for work. I mean, you can kind of work around it a little bit, but I think looking at some of those metrics and then understanding what the impact, the awareness of, if you're doing that, what can I expect to have happen to me negatively? Just knowing that, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. One thing I wanted to touch with you or ask you about is, what's your take on like intermittent fasting or fasting, things like that? Because I know it's something, again, that I think you hear that as like a buzzword a bit, and people don't really understand it. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I know it varies for different people depending on what what type of person you are and what how that all affects your body. But how do you see that, and kind of, do you recommend that to your clients or to the people that you work with, or no?
I do. Yeah. So it's a great tool, and you can use it for a few different things. There's a few caveats though, as well. So, for example, if you're really depleted hormonally, you're really burnt out, you've just finished a long season, or you've, like from some of our UFC fighters, if they finish like a intense training camp, like an 8 to 12 week camp, they have their fight. Those aren't the times to do intermittent fasting, because it does add an extra strain to your nervous system.
Yeah.
Just like you wouldn't want to lift your 1 rep max every single day. Like, why would you add that much extra strain to your system? It's not going to be helpful. Fasting is kind of along those lines, but you can use it for a few different reasons. There's lots of health benefits and longevity benefits to it, like improving long-term health. The idea behind it is for weight control. It's almost like a psychological tool, because it's going to control how much you can intake.
Sure. Yeah.
So I have a guy right now. He just had a fracture. So he's worried about his weight going up like crazy because he can't train, like a lower body fracture. So I have him on a 4-hour eating window right now. So he's eating all his calories in 4 hours just to keep his weight in that.
Yeah.
He's a pro athlete. So we got to keep his weight kind of in the right zone. And he's usually going in camp around 8% body fat. But if we don't watch what he's doing, he was up at 17% body fat when I started working with him. We're down on 8 now consistently, but we've got to sort of dial in what we're doing food wise, like in the timing windows. But yeah, intermittent fasting is a really good tool depending on what you're using it for. If you're just using it for optimal health, you could do like a once a week 24-hour fast, where it forces your body to sort of clear out some of the damaged cells and reset. There's longer fasts for different reasons. Like there's some research on cancer prevention, longer duration fasts. But the intermittent fasting daily, I think, is good for calorie control. And also, if you feel like you don't have a lot of stress or strain, people tend to get better results with it.
Yeah.
And you can kind of add, like if you don't have a lot of life stress, you can adjust the eating windows more intensely, I'll say.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. I've been doing it. I've been doing intermittent fasting for probably a year and a half plus. And I've got 2 young kids, so we'll have dinner at 5:30, 6 o'clock, whatever that is. And usually I'll stop eating then. And then by the time the next morning comes around, we'll get the kids off to school on a normal year, and I'll go to work and I'll have something at lunch or just before lunch. And it's worked well for me. One thing I found that it helped me with was I had more energy throughout the day. This is just my own personal feeling, because I would get like zonky in the afternoon sometimes, and that really went away for me. I felt, and I just felt better. I just overall felt a lot better. And then I'll have a couple of days where, like on the week, I don't want my kids to ever get into this until they're ready to. So I don't want them seeing me not eating. When I'm making breakfast and I'm making lunches, it's easy to kind of cover up that I'm not having breakfast with them. And then on the weekends, I'll have like a normal breakfast and, kind of chill with them. So I'll probably do it 5-6 days a week, depending on the week. But it has been helpful for me, but I try not to promote it. I try not to go around telling, hey, you should do this. Hey, everybody should intermittent fast. Cause I don't think it is for everybody. I think you gotta, you got to figure out what works for you and how you feel good. And this is something that I found, a couple of years ago I felt good with it, but Yeah, it is a good tool. We don't use it with everyone. And I have seen cases where people can go backwards in their progress with it too. Right. Like I've had, I'm just thinking of someone off the top of my head who had a really stressful job,
and she wanted to lose the weight. So she was going pretty aggressive on the intermittent fasting. She actually gained 20 pounds and slowed her thyroid right down.
No way.
So she had so much work stress, was trying to eat in a little window, under eating, adding too much stress to her system. So, and then when we looked at her thyroid numbers, she basically just like slowed it right down. So thyroid controls the speed of your metabolism.
Yeah. So were you able to help her reverse that? Like,
yeah. So we took her off the intermittent fasting right away, checked her cortisol rhythm and stress hormones, corrected everything there, corrected her diet, had her eating more and more balanced meals more often, got the thyroid back to where it should go. And then now we're playing with a little bit of intermittent fasting here and there. She's in the movie industry. So she's like on the set, sometimes can't eat, can't drink. So we're kind of using that to our advantage because it fits with her day.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So we're like, you can't really eat in this time window anyway. Let's just fast there. And then we'll eat in this window here.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Man, this has been like brain overload. I love this. It's so good.
I think for hockey guys, though, I don't know if intermittent fasting is a great strategy unless you're trying to lean out in the off season or do things like that.
I agree. I remember when I played, I remember going to the rink sometimes and maybe I didn't have a good breakfast or I had something quick and eat like something quick.
Yeah.
And, got on the ice, went to practice. I remember going to the bench and being asking our trainer, like, grab me some Gatorade or something. I'm getting headed. And I think you're right. And I think the other thing too, if people are getting into intermittent fasting, it's not you don't just do it one day and there are 2 days and then like, it's, cause it's a bit of a battle to get into it. Like I remember my first couple of days or my first week I didn't feel great. It wasn't the best. And then once I got over that hump, I was like, oh man, now I got into a bit of a rhythm with it, which felt really good. But it's not, and I agree with you. I think for athletes that are, in let's say a hockey schedule where they're going to be practicing at 9 or 10 in the morning and they're going to be playing games late at night, I think you got to find what's going to work for you a little bit better to get that nutrition in.
Yeah. And hockey is such a glucose, like carb dependent sport, just the nature of it, even the training style, the explosiveness. So if you're going into a workout, and I'm sure you've seen this, you guys, like guys who are coming in and haven't eaten anything, the workout's kind of flat, right?
Yeah.
Same with game performance. Like hockey is such different than other sports. You need to have that like preload your muscles and nervous system with carbs to be able to fire, right? Like that 1-to-1 protein to carb ratio on game day, for example. But fueling for players is so important. Like I would bet on the player who's properly fueled versus the one that maybe has a little bit better skill for performance in that game.
Right.
Yeah. That's how important that is, right? If you have nothing in the tank, you can't really show the skills that you have properly, right? Yeah. And I'm sure you guys can think of hockey players that have missed. Like I could think of like probably 5 guys that were really highly rated guys that never really made the most of their opportunities because they weren't doing the right things away from the rink.
Totally. Oh, yeah. And I know when the ketogenic diet was really popular, I mean, it's still floating around, but there was a period a couple of years ago where like everyone was talking about it. And I had to talk to a lot of players about, no, like this is not the strategy for you. I'm no expert in the entire nutrition aspect of things, but keto is not what you should be doing. And I had to have that conversation actually quite a bit a couple of years ago. And like you said, you could see it in the training center. They weren't performing as well. A lot of them were leaning out, which made it harder for them to like believe that they didn't need to do it. It's like, look, you don't need to be 5% body fat to play hockey. And like you said, you could see it in the gym and on the ice.
Yeah, you can get away with it a little bit in the off season if you're just trying to get the body fat down a little bit. You can play with fasting and keto and things like that just to lean out a little bit. But in general, for the season, you want to be as fueled up as you can, right?
Totally, definitely. Well, man, this was awesome, buddy. And I'd love to, Callum, I'd love to do a part 2 with you. And like I said, I'd like to go through the process with you and your team and even follow up with you. Cause I know there's so many other things, Mitch, I'm sure you too, there's so many other things we could talk about and go down with your expertise, and some of the advice you gave today, I think is priceless for parents out there, players out there that are looking to get a little bit of that edge. And I know when I played, man, I remember when I played, somebody told me, I've got the secret for you. And it was Olympic lifting, like doing proper Olympic lifts, which I'd already been doing, but this strength coaches thought he had figured it out. Right. And I mean, Mitch, you'll attest to this. Olympic lifts, I think, are very important. And if you can do them properly, they're a great exercise. But so I got more into Olympic lifting when I was talking to this gentleman, because I believe what he was saying. And so at the end of the day, I think athletes and high performers are always looking for ways to get a bit of an advantage or get a bit of a step up. So I think something like this, and what you offer, Callum, is awesome, man. So I'm really thankful that you came on. This is great.
Oh, thank you. No, appreciate coming on, guys. That was awesome. Yeah, there's so many things we can get into, right?
Yeah, we could talk all day for sure.
Yeah.
Specificity is key. That's a big takeaway here, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also just not settling for suboptimal. And, just on your point there, quick, Dwayne, like a lot of the hockey guys I work with that are at the pro level now, I ask, why are you doing this? Or why are you doing this strategy? Or why are you taking this supplement? Or why are you eating this? And something I picked up along the way, somebody told me this when I was 16 and I, and it's the most ridiculous things. Like there's absolutely no basis for it, but they picked it up and, for whatever reason, and not that it's a bad thing. Like sometimes psychologically, maybe those things help, but I find I pick up little things, right?
Totally. And even like for me as an older guy who played, and I would consider myself I back in the day like a high performance athlete who played high level and stuff, but even to this day, like I haven't got into supplements. I take vitamin D and I'll have protein powder maybe after workouts or once in a while or whatever, and the only reason why I haven't is because I haven't trusted anything I've seen out there, and I don't know enough about it. So for me to go and get a multi-pack of this or a multi-pack of that or a post this or a pre this, I'm like, I don't know if I'm just taking stuff or just exactly what you're saying. I just picked it up along the way, so I'd love to this is another reason I'd love to get the scientific backing on why you're taking this. I think that's so important, right? Rather than just, I saw a cool ad on this podcast, I'm going to buy this stuff and start taking it for no real reason on why,
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll usually show guys like the evidence on it. Like, so in the hockey program, the online program, where there's a whole section on like, here are the top evidence-based supplements that will actually improve your performance. Yeah. Like with, the studies behind it and everything there, right? It's not just like me telling you that. It's like, here's what we expect to see. But supplements are a good add-on, but you want to have a good foundation already. Like you want to have good lifestyle stuff. You want to have good sleep. You want to have good nutrient dense foods. You want to have a base there. The supplements aren't going to fix all your problems. But they will help correct certain things like precisely. And so we only use professional grade stuff that's third-party tested, certified. That's a whole other like podcast probably, but supplement industry doesn't have a lot of regulations. So stuff that you could be picking up generically and you go, I tried this, didn't work. Well, it's not necessarily that. It's like the dose, the form, the timing, it's like someone saying to you, I tried working out, it didn't work for me. What'd you do, right?
Yeah.
What kind of workout did you do?
It's a great
I have to touch on this really quick too. So I didn't take a lot of supplements prior to when I was about 19. Then I did all this biosignature stuff and I bought into the idea of it. And I started taking supplements that were based on, my body fat and all that stuff from like probably 19 to 23. So like 4 years I committed to it. Didn't see a huge difference from about 23 until I met Callum. Like I was often not even taking protein after workouts, sometimes, but I was not taking supplements, nothing. Because that experience pretty much had me just say, you know what, like I'm never taking anything again unless I know that I need to take it. Like if I got my blood test and vitamin D was low, then I'll take vitamin D. Sure. But I'm only taking it if I know. And then I didn't take anything again until I met Callum, and then felt a huge difference in a week. So in 4 years of thinking that I was taking supplements based on something, I didn't feel nearly the change that I did in a week of actually taking them based on something real. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are going through and have gone through stuff like that. So I just can't emphasize that point enough. Is how important that specificity is.
Yeah, like if you're loading up on supplements, you're not actually correcting anything, right?
No.
Like when we're testing stuff, we're looking for what areas need to improve, correct those areas, and you come off anything that we would be using. But there's some foundational stuff that you can be taking like on a daily basis, but you should be thinking of getting most of it from your food, right?
Yeah,
I think a lot of guys will try to, I'm eating poorly, so I'll try to compensate for 25 supplements, which is not a good
right.
I've seen everything at this point,
Oh, for sure you have
everything.
Definitely. One thing too is Are you still working with Gabriel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you explain, and this is more kind of for fun facts here, but I know he's big on the potato in the morning, right? And that like kind of took off. Like, right? So
Mitch set you up.
It just came to my head because I know. So for anyone who doesn't know, Curtis Gabriel was with the San Jose Sharks. Had a good stint this year there. Obviously, was up most of the year, played a couple of big games, and not afraid of anybody. He'll fight anybody, but he's really dialed into like body and.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes a little bit too dialed in, but dialed into like body and everything, even from his skills training. Like he's a guy who, when he got this opportunity again this year, which is awesome. I was very happy for him because he does work hard, man. He puts in a lot of time. He'll go stick handle in the parking lot. He'll stick handle at church. He doesn't care. Like he'll work on stuff. He'll do, if you told him to put potatoes on his ears, he'd put potatoes on his ears, right? Like he wants it. So yeah. Can you explain so for anybody who hasn't checked Curtis's, Instagram or feeds out, you'll see every morning he's posting pictures of having a potato, and it's like the most bland, like worst breakfast in the world for anyone who loves breakfast. But so yeah, Callum, you can explain this a little bit.
Yeah. That's funny. First of all, I love his mentality. Like he's one of those guys who's like, I'm looking to get better in every way possible. We did some blood testing and he didn't do well with a lot of the different grains, a lot of different carb sources. And then being up and down with the AHL, NHL, it was tough to find, like, if you're staying in a hotel, can you switch your carb? Like you only have what they have sometimes in the hotel buffet or whatever, the continental breakfast or whatever. So potato ended up being like one of the carb sources that would work really well for him, that he could get access to like anywhere. Yeah. So he's kind of an extreme personality kind of guy, right? So he went like all in on it. So that ended up being his like main carb source. Nothing else was reliable. Like you couldn't get access to like sweet potatoes that often. You couldn't get access to some of the different other grains that were okay. But yeah, his gut was pretty reactive to a lot of the big ones. We'll see when we're going to retest them coming up here soon in the off season and see kind of how that has shifted. But it was funny to see the potato power. Hilarious. Yeah. It was good. He's that kind of guy, right? Where he's like, he's all in or all out, right? Yeah. So, and we get a lot of those kind of guys. Like high performers are like that. It's like, am I going to do this or am I not going to do this? Like,
Yeah. And there's also something to be said, and this is for like young athletes out there too. Like, be authentic to who you are. And that's one thing that, love him or hate him. If he's too much, too little, it's up, everyone can have their own opinion, but Curtis is that guy. Like he's authentic to who he is. Like I remember the one day one of the guys comes down, and is like, Blazer, Curtis in the back with a helmet on and a ball hanging from him. He's punching his ball, like, right. And then you see, like, he posts a video of him doing it like at the NHL level. Right. And that's who he is, man. No matter if he's training in London or if he's in the NHL. Even him stick handling, like he stick handles, always working on his hands and trying to get better, which is awesome. And then I was talking to guys in the NHL, and they're like, he comes running through the locker room with a stick handling ball and a stick and like bumping into guys and like just he's the same, you know what I mean? So it's like that's just him.
I love it. It's crazy too, because like I was thinking of another story, probably about 3-4 years ago, I did some blood an NHL guy.
So sorry, start that again. You cut out a little bit. So you were doing.
I think it was probably about 3 to 5 years ago, somewhere in that zone. I was working with a guy, top 10 NHL guy, I would say, and we did his blood testing. A lot of foods weren't working for him. Gut was off, some hormone issues, right? But 2 years after that, we reassessed his blood, and he still was avoiding like all the foods on there, even though we went through the whole process, reset, fixed everything, put it back in. But some guys are like that, right? Where it's like, if at some point in my lifetime, I didn't do well with these foods, those foods are now gone for me for good. Even though I was explaining to him, like, you can reincorporate those. But his analogy was, once you start seeing in high definition, it's hard to go back to regular TV.
Right.
So he's like, once I started feeling like this, he's like, I don't even want to take a chance at going back the other way. And anyway, so some, I think Curtis might, be like that kind of a guy where he's like dialed in, right?
Yeah,
totally.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, this was awesome, man. And we will definitely be in touch. This has been a lot of fun. Mitch, thanks a lot for jumping on too, man. Some great insight there too, which is always good. So thank you very much.
Thanks. It's great.
Awesome. No, yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. It's awesome.
All right. To kind of raise that bar.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps,
huge strides into performance.
that I might not be the player I am today.